People sometimes seem surprised when I tell them this. I'm really not much of a gamer anymore. Sure, I own a PlayStation 5, I also have a Nintendo Switch, but there are weeks, even months, when neither one gets turned on. That's a far cry from the kid I used to be. Because when I was growing up, my parents practically had to pry the controller out of my hands, and every gaming memory I have, every Nintendo adventure, every PlayStation marathon, every late night gaming session can all be traced back to one little console that sat beneath our television, the ColecoVision. As far as I can remember, the ColecoVision was my very first home video game console. Now, technically it wasn't the first generation of home gaming. That honor belongs to systems that mostly played simple games like Pong. The ColecoVision came a little later, but for me, this was the beginning. It was my introduction to video games. I honestly couldn't tell you how old I was the first time I picked up that controller. I don't remember who plugged the console in, I don't remember who bought it, but I do remember just how magical it felt. Looking back today, I have no idea how we ever thought this controller made sense. It looked more like a television remote than a game controller. At the top was a little joystick, below that was an entire telephone keypad, and then there were buttons on each side that you had to squeeze while somehow balancing the whole thing in your hand. Compared to today's controllers, it was awkward. But when you're a kid, you don't question those things, you just learn. And before long, it felt pretty natural. The game I remember most is Donkey Kong. At the time, I had no idea the arcade version was different. I didn't know the Nintendo version would become iconic. I just knew I loved jumping over barrels and climbing toward the top. Apparently, according to my parents, I was actually pretty good at it. I also spent plenty of time with Donkey Kong Jr., Q*bert, which, by the way, may have introduced an entire generation of kids to cartoon swearing, and a surprisingly difficult Smurfs game that I remember feeling absolutely impossible. Looking back now, those games seem incredibly simple, but back then, they felt like entire worlds. One funny thing happens when you look back 40 years. Your memories start blending together. Sometimes I honestly can't remember whether I played a game on the ColecoVision or on the Atari 2600. And there was actually a good reason for that. Our ColecoVision had an expansion module that let us play Atari 2600 cartridges. So, to little kid Aaron, there wasn't much difference. Games were just games. It wasn't until the ColecoVision finally stopped working that my family eventually bought an actual Atari 2600. That's a story for another episode. Today, the ColecoVision isn't the console people usually remember first. When people talk about retro gaming, it's usually the NES, the Sega Genesis, or maybe the Super Nintendo. The ColecoVision often gets left out of the conversation. But not for me, because this wasn't just another console. It was my beginning. Every gaming experience I've ever had, every adventure, every favorite franchise, every late-night gaming session started with this chunky little machine sitting beneath our family television. I may not spend hours gaming anymore, life has a way of getting busier, but every now and then, it's nice to remember where it all started. So that's my earliest gaming memory. Now, I'd love to hear yours. What's the very first video game that you remember playing? Was it Atari, Nintendo, Sega, something even older? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoy nostalgic trips through gaming history, be sure to subscribe. Next time, we'll take a look at the console that followed the ColecoVision in my house, the Atari 2600. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.